Yep.
Hello, 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 Lottie Dottie, and everybody. I am Tarina Ali, and I am your host of the Suds Cafe podcast, where conversations bubble over into your soul. And I'm excited to have another amazing guest every time we come on. And you all hear me say amazing every time, and I mean that because each person is amazing in their own right. And I have the privilege of saying that Erica, who is our guest today, she will introduce herself. Um, we'll get to how we know each other, but I'll let Erica just introduce herself to the Suds Cafe audience. Hi, Erica. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am Erica Thompson. Tarina and I go way, 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 way back.
Yes, yes.
I am uh, Prince George's County raised. I wasn't born here. I was born overseas. Father was in military,
That's right.
but
That's right.
raised. I've been in Prince George's County, District Heights first, and then now Laurel.
Okay.
Um, Almost 50 years, and
Mm,
love the DC area. I know I
yes.
can't say I'm from DC.
Yo, yo, what?
And I am 52 years old and not married, and I don't have
Mhm.
children. And I think that's the topic for
Hmm.
today.
Yes, yes. And we're going to get right into the topic. And like Erica mentioned, we go way back to our childhood home church, none other than Mount Ephraim Baptist Church underneath of the late and the great Pastor Joseph A. Gilmore. And
Mhm.
so when I was just thinking about the topics and just always prayerful about things that we share here on this podcast to bring inspiration and hope to all people from all walks of life. And the
Mhm.
beauty of just even doing podcasts, you never know who may see the content or listen to it. And so I'm really mindful that it could be someone in Australia and Nigeria, with those places that I have connected with, or just right here in the local DC metro area. And something that I was just really thinking about as Erica, you were talking about women at a certain age who are not married or basically who don't have children,
Mhm.
and just some of the societal pressures as women that come into play. And I just really wanted to talk about them. And I thought about, I was like, who can I ask? And you graciously agreed to share. And I think this would resonate with many women who choose not to have kids for whatever reason, or who may, cannot for whatever reason, which is nobody's business, honestly.
Mhm.
And so we're going to really get into that of how so many people are in the ovaries and or in the reproductive system of other people, which is like, why are you all into that, right? And so,
Mhm.
Erica, just for as we're getting started out, just in your experience, you can't speak for the masses, but I do
Mhm.
believe some of the things that you're talking will definitely touch on, and I believe other
Mhm.
women could connect with. But in your opinion, what have been or some of the major societal or cultural pressures that women face to have children, or that you may have faced,
Mhm.
and how do these pressures manifest personally
Mhm.
or professionally?
Um, it seems like everyone thinks that women, that's what we're supposed to do. You're
Mhm.
supposed to have children because God ordained it,
Yeah.
and if you don't, then something is wrong, wrong with you. I always love kids. Let me say that. I shouldn't have to say that. I used to be a teacher. I grew up making money babysitting
Mhm.
different kids.
Mhm.
I love being around kids, but
Mhm.
I realized at a certain point they got to go home.
Mhm. Mhm.
Go
Mhm.
home. And
Mhm.
and I think and I used to think, oh, if I got married, I'll have kids, but if not,
Mhm.
I'm okay. And
Mhm.
then I was thinking, well, I'll be okay being a single mom, but
Mhm.
I'm like, but then I would think about it. I'm like, I never had that urge.
Mhm.
I never had that urge. As far as pressures, like I do kind of feel bad because I think my mom
Mhm.
really didn't like
Mhm.
to hear me say that. She
Mhm.
only has one biological grandchild and
Mhm.
has three I don't want to say step, but bonus grandkids
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
through my brother. But yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
and then with the dating scene, you run across guys that they want
Mm-hmm.
kids or don't understand, and it
Mm-hmm.
goes back to that whole what's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Mm-hmm.
doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had a doctor once. I mean, I know where you go for your well woman checkup and all of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is supposed to be first, when's your last cycle?
Yeah.
How many pregnancies and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. This
Mm-hmm.
doctor, I think I was in my early 30s at the time, and she just
Mm-hmm.
jumped into how many kids do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where are the other questions?
Right.
And
Right.
when I told her I didn't have kids, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Well, this is your age, and you better get started."
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And that was my first and last time with her because you didn't even try to get to know me. You just made these
Mm-hmm.
assumptions, and
Mm-hmm.
that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think language matters and the assumptions matter, and it is lumping everyone into the same pot as if all women are monolithic, and that's just not true.
True.
And you
Yeah.
still can have the nurturing capabilities and all the things without having to be a mother. And
Mhm.
I just think it's an unfair pressure that people put on women, spoken and unspoken.
Mhm.
And what I've even heard from some of my friends or even colleagues who don't have kids is the undertone, as you talked about, we use the air quotes, that something is wrong with you, or
Mhm.
um, just always something negative. It's never from the place of what about this woman like yourself who has made an informed decision for her
Mhm.
life that this is what she wants. And I was just watching something where Tracy Ellis Ross was talking to Oprah
Mhm.
about this same fact of them being okay with their lives and their lives are
Mhm.
full. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that there's something missing, or it doesn't mean that your life is incomplete because
Mhm.
you opted not to have children. I just really wanted to have this conversation as we're flowing into, because sometimes I believe that women take on these pressures where they may not have this safe space to talk about it or really have the courage to even
Mhm.
speak up. And it's same way with even getting married, and both of us come from the church, right? And so
Mhm. Mhm.
even the undertone, I would say in my experience, and you, of women being pushed even to be married.
Mhm.
It's this whole thing. If you're single, you have to be single and waiting on God to send you this man, as if
What is it, Boaz or who?
yeah, and it's just like it's that whole thing from that view of vantage point of, yes, we do understand history of, women and in history and African American women and all those things who did
Mhm.
very great things with our
They,
lineage
yeah,
and our ancestry, but that doesn't
yeah,
mean everyone wants to, have children or what have you.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
what are some of the biggest criticisms that you think that you may have faced or some others may have faced, from example, family, friends, and we're kind of touching on this of society as
Mhm.
a large, and how, have you been
Mhm.
able to cope with some of those external pressures?
So now, like, now that I am 52, no,
Hmm.
people leave me alone now because they're
Okay.
like,
Okay.
okay, it's kind of
Okay.
too late or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
but in the 20s and 30s, it was hard. And you spoke about the
Hmm.
church. A lot
Hmm.
of it, like guilt thinking, like, oh, I better not get pregnant because I'm not married,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
like the pressure that was put on single women, and
Hmm.
then when you get older, you realize why nobody talking about these men, this woman or this young
Hmm.
girl didn't get pregnant by herself. So
Hmm.
why
That
is
part.
it? I saw in
Hmm.
Good Times, like, what did Florida say once? They're somewhere near the scene of the crime. Men are. So
Yes.
why
Yes.
aren't
Yes.
they getting
Hmm.
that pressure? And I think and then even when I used to teach, I would have students would ask me first,
Hmm.
again, how many kids do I have before they
Hmm.
would even ask if I was even
About.
married. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it's
Yeah.
because like if it because of Black culture, that's the
Mm-hmm.
expectation,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're
Mm-hmm.
out here feeling like a unicorn or
Yeah.
what.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but it's interesting, and I used to when I younger, I was like, oh, I'm not going to date anybody that has kids. This is when I
Mm-hmm.
was in early 20s. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized as I got older, it became, okay, if I date somebody who have kids, how many baby mamas does he have?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now
Mm-hmm.
it's become, okay, how old are the kids?
Yes.
He'll
Mm-hmm.
probably have grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
like, my preferences or my reality has
Yeah.
shifted
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I was going to say the pressure, people also assume, I was saying earlier that I love kids. People sometimes assume that I don't like kids because I don't,
Mm.
and that's not the case at all.
Yeah, and I think it just boils down to personal choice for
Mm-hmm,
women, right? And every circumstance is different, right? There are some women who may hear this who, have the desire to have kids, or for whatever reason they may not cannot or didn't reach the right partner for them. It's a number
mm-hmm,
of variables, but just to lump everybody, I think, in the same category, or like you talked about, the doctor saying to you, or people making the assumption of how many kids do you have, like it's just expected that
mm-hmm,
women are just supposed to have children, even if they aren't married. It is, oh, you at least you have kids.
mm-hmm,
And like you talked about, just being that unicorn, because there are people out there who had no desire to have
mm-hmm,
children whatsoever, who taking care of kids, same thing that you said, great
mm-hmm,
godparents, great aunties, all the
mm-hmm,
things, which all those places are needed just as well, right? And not minimizing that, because I've heard even things of like
mm-hmm.
family functions. I've heard somebody share family or the holidays, then it's the question, oh, she still don't have no kids yet, or it's just like, mind your business.
Or my favorite, like, I've had relatives like, you're not going to ever find anybody because you don't never sit down. Like,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. It's a part of, as if the identity of the woman isn't secure in some
Mm-hmm,
societal folks' minds
mm-hmm.
until she is married to someone or even have kids. And even hearing things of, oh, well, you're not going to have anybody to take care of you when you are older. I used to work in a nursing home. There are people who had plenty kids who kids did not take care of them at all.
Exactly. And I hate nursing homes
Hmm.
because you do see
Hmm.
people there like
Hmm.
they don't have anybody, and
And
it's,
yeah.
it's that's such I've seen people,
Hmm.
new people in nursing homes
Hmm.
that have kids
Hmm. Yep.
and their kids don't bother with them,
At all.
including a relative that I just saw a few weeks
Hmm.
ago.
Hmm. Yep.
So
Yeah. So those are things that people label and say they're
mhm,
just not all equal. That it happens. And some women really don't have the courage. And I love how you mentioned how seasons in your life have changed the older that you have gotten.
mhm,
And I'm sure the courage and the language,
mhm.
that you probably had to formulate through the years. I would imagine that in your 20s or, 30s, now where you are in your 50s, at this point, it is like, this is what it is, take it or leave it,
Basically, that's exactly what it is, and
Yeah.
and it's so interesting because now, like, with the also the added being single, it's like it's like people use it as an insult too. Like,
Yeah.
if especially if you see it on social media,
Hmm.
somebody could say the sky is purple, and I say
Hmm.
no, that's not right. The sky is
Hmm.
blue, and the retort is that's why you single.
Say, oh my God. Yes.
And I'm like, you can't
Yeah.
even have a disagreement
Hmm.
about that being thrown in your face.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you add to it. And I really truly feel bad for a lot of my friends who did want kids,
Hmm.
but for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
career or wanting to be
Mm-hmm.
married,
Mm-hmm.
and it just never happened for them.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had another friend when she got close to 40, she was like, look, I'm gonna do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was expecting that to happen to me too, that the baby pains were so strong
Mm-hmm.
that I was going to be willing to do
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, oh, no, you can't.
Yeah, and it's not, and when you started out and saying, the kids have to go home at a certain time, you watch them, and it's so funny. Like I have children, but I wasn't that mom who always want kids over, and
Mm-hmm,
like we're gonna have sleepovers and the my
mm-hmm,
two, and that's it. Because I you like that's my son
uh-huh.
had a Halloween party with his friends over here. And at a certain time, I'm looking around, they having a good time. I'm like, y'all not ready to wind y'all not ready to wind this up. Because I said that they like we're all different, right? Don't put
Different.
labels on people. See people as they are individually as a person and be okay with that. And if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not your people. And I would say for
Yeah.
any woman who's listening, if a person cannot accept how you are, whether single,
Mm-hmm.
married, with kids or not, then
Yep.
they are definitely not your people when they're going to, superimpose their values or their needs and their wants on you. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it, unfortunately, where people have gotten into things because of what family wanted them to
Mm-hmm.
do, or the pressure of, oh, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to have any grandkids, and
Mm-hmm.
people cave into these things and get in roles that maybe they probably should not even have been in, but because of the
Mm-hmm.
pressure, or
Yeah.
feeling like I don't want to go to a wedding by myself, or I don't want to go somewhere and I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a date, or you know I'm at a school function for my niece, and then they don't see me with kids here, and some women
Mm-hmm.
honestly struggle with that, and I just hope that those who may be listening can walk away with a level of
Mm-hmm.
hope to say that if they've making this form decision for themselves, to be okay,
Okay.
yeah, with that.
Yeah.
And so withstanding that, because we have evolved, right? We think of our
Mm-hmm.
parents' generation, right? And you think
Mm-hmm.
of where we are now, that gender roles have evolved, family dynamics change.
Mm-hmm.
Like family isn't always blood of origin, right? Family is
Yeah.
who we can choose it to be.
Yes, exactly.
um and so how do you think that
Mm-hmm.
has impacted women of how they view motherhood today
Mm-hmm.
compared to previous generations? For example, like when
Yeah.
our moms came up, how do you see the generational differences with that regarding motherhood?
Yeah, I think I love that women have more choices now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
honestly, and I crack up because my mom, I think she kind of caved to societal
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
pressures because she
Mm-hmm.
moved to DC when she was 16,
Mm-hmm.
had a job, and then,
Yep.
but I think and she said she was dating. I would ask her like, did you date anybody before dad? She met my dad on a blind date, and I
Mm-hmm.
think at the ripe old age of 24, 25,
Mm-hmm.
people were telling her, you need to be married, you need to be married. And then I
Yeah.
guess other people telling my dad that you need to be
Mm-hmm.
married. They set
Mm-hmm.
them up and they
Mm-hmm.
got married. And my mom was
Mm-hmm.
married by 26. And back in the 60s, that was ancient.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
26, it's like, why are you getting married at 26?
So yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I and I'm glad I'm like have this independence, and I've also been
Mm-hmm.
sort of a loner too.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't compute when I hear people scared to go to a wedding by themselves. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
outfit can I wear? Or go
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
travel by themselves or go
Yeah.
out to
Yeah.
dinner.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't phase me, but I
Mm-hmm.
recognize everybody is not there. And I
Yes.
just want people to understand that being alone does not equal lonely. That's two
Yes.
different things.
Yes,
And
Erica.
sometimes I've made bad decisions the
Mm-hmm.
times that I've been lonely,
Mm-hmm.
let people into
Yeah.
my life like
Yeah.
God looks out for fools and baby.
Say that again. Same here. Same
Because
here.
I've had some
Yeah.
choices in men that like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep. Same
Yeah.
here. Same here.
Mhm.
And it's like a scarlet letter for some
Mhm.
women if they're not. No other word that I could think of the movie like Hitch. They're not hitched up with somebody. Like their identity and who they see themselves is attached to someone
Mhm.
else. And
Mhm.
I want women and encourage women to understand that you should be a whole person in yourself, whether or not you meet another person or not, right? Whether or not
Mhm.
you have children or not. Yes, people have desires, right? But then
Mhm.
also let your desires be yours
Yeah.
and not someone else's, right?
Yeah.
And I can wholeheartedly say I probably when I first my first marriage that I got married a lot sooner than
Mhm.
I probably wanted to, because I had gotten pregnant first, and then it was, oh, so what y'all gonna do, kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And so that's the next
Mhm.
course of action, right? When really,
Yeah.
nah, not necessarily, because you have a kid don't mean you have to pair up with somebody. And so I think
Mhm.
all of these things that we're talking about, how the role of the woman has changed and evolved through generations, and I think that is a good thing, as you talked about women having more choices to,
Mhm.
even when it comes down to, I know some people who've decided to opt out of having a partner who wanted to do what's that,
Mhm.
in vitro, or and be the
Mhm.
single mom and who have the kids and went to the sperm donor, if I'm saying the wrong words,
Mhm.
forgive me, but having the
Mhm.
empowerment to choose to do whatever that they wanted to do. But for the
Yeah.
premise of what we're talking about here, I want women to be empowered and
Howard.
to be okay with the decisions that they make for their
Yeah.
own lives. That is not
That.
compared to your girlfriend, not compared to your colleagues at work, because all of
Mhm.
that comes into play. And I love how you
Mhm.
shared that those things didn't bother you in that way of going to
Mhm.
a wedding by yourself, or I think you had posted somewhere, I don't know, a concert that you had gone to before on social
Mhm.
media, that you'll go,
Mhm.
or even what travel,
Travel. Yeah.
yeah, doing some of those things where people feel like that I can't do any of these things if I'm not
Mhm.
attached to somebody. There are a whole bunch of people who do solo travel,
Mhm.
whole bunch
Yeah.
of people, right? And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a good time. And so we're talking about these things to say, hey, to empower yourself to feel that whatever choices you make for your life, be okay with those choices. And a lot of times we have stereotypes, gender stereotypes in particular, when it comes to
Mhm.
women, that
Mhm.
also reinforce the expectation
Mhm.
and mothers. And I think it starts from a little girl, like even
Yeah.
with or maybe
Even
you could
baby
share on it,
dolls.
dolls, like it starts very early. And so can you speak
Mhm.
to, and just in your experience or your thoughts around the traditional stereotypes, I'm sorry, that women, even from young girls, the expectation was to be a mother early on, and how do we
Yeah.
change some of those ingrained cultural narratives?
Providing, I guess provide what's the word, role models,
Mm-hmm.
mentors,
Yes.
um
Yeah.
that it's okay, like if you don't want to play with dolls. I had
Mm-hmm.
dolls, but not a lot. I was a tomboy.
I didn't.
A lot.
I think I had a Cabbage Patch maybe, and some of the dog that was real warm. I don't know what it is, but I wasn't a dog girl either. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Like my mom wanted me to do like dance,
Mm.
and that was but also because I was chubby, I wasn't trying to do like the leotard. Now I did swimming, but because that was
uh,
a non-negotiable. My mom wanted us to learn
okay, to
how to
learn how to.
swim,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't a girly girl.
Mm-hmm.
She
Me
wanted
either.
me to do a cotillion, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be in a white poofy dress. But then when it did come around prom time, I had on the dress. Everybody was shocked that it was strapless and
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and, and they were like, Erica, because that I see little TikToks now with the prom with the girls that don't look girly girl and
Mm-hmm.
platform, that was me. And
Mm-hmm.
I think as far as like the stereotypes, yeah, just mentors and saying that there
Yeah.
are other things. And even if you do want to be a mom, you
Mm-hmm.
can still do other things. Your life won't have to stop just
Mm.
because even if you want to take your child on a trip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I personally wouldn't take a child younger than 5 because if you're gonna spend that kind of money, they got to remember something.
Remember, yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah,
people do. I see it on my timeline all the time. I,
yeah.
I see little kids that got more passport stamps than I
Stamp
do.
saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see
So
that too. Yeah.
yeah. So
I just think, like you said, even when we were talking about the maturation of girls and the gender stereotypes, that if
mhm,
so many things regarding women, it's the labels on it that you have to
mhm,
be girly, girly, meaning the fritz, the
mhm,
bows, and that
mhm,
may not be you. And then even if it is, we'll label these things, and I think that's where it even comes from. I think it's a
mhm,
perfect segue into this, which we got labeled as tomboy, right? It's like, where are
mhm,
you going to put this category of young girls who don't fit the girly girl? And I think that just
mhm,
reinforces and conditions trying to make women monolithic, and then when they don't
mhm,
fit into these certain narratives, then
mhm.
you got to label them as something. Like,
Yeah,
all women are not the
exactly.
they're just not the same. Like, I wear skirts and stuff, but probably 9 times out of 10, that's not my first thing that I'm gonna really kind of probably go to. Like, that's
Mhm.
probably not. But that doesn't mean you're less of a woman. And I think we just have to
Yeah,
be very careful about stereotyping people, and then
yeah.
also showing biases against women
Mhm,
who choose to make certain decisions, because
mhm,
people, and me being in my field of counseling, I've seen it where people, women in particular, internalize this so much, and
mhm,
they feel like that they're not a whole person, or that something is wrong with them, that they're not
mhm.
valuable. And I just want to say that is just not true. And if anybody is making you feel like that, then those
Mhm.
people don't need to be in your village and
Yeah.
have the courage or even the language, because coming to a holiday function when people are around, there's a
Mhm.
lot of other things to talk about beyond,
Yeah,
and that can be hurtful, you know what I mean, for
exactly.
people in that experience. Have you ever had that experience maybe years ago where it was like a holiday event and the conversation or whatever became about you and the choices that you were making in your life, for example, regarding kids?
Well, like, cause I like got a cross section of folks. So
Okay.
usually the criticism I get when most would come from extended family
Okay. Okay.
because
Mm-hmm.
I have like over 50 first cousins
Oh,
just on
wow.
my mom's
Oh,
side
wow.
alone.
Okay.
So it's just more of, and I shouldn't label it criticism, it's more
Mm-hmm.
like not understanding because everybody else
Mm-hmm.
out here having kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I wonder sometimes people, oh, and there's nothing wrong with this because I know it's Pride Month. People are like, wonder, is she gay? No,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. That too.
but gay
Yes.
people want kids.
Well, kids too. Thank you. That doesn't mean thank you. Exactly.
Exactly. And it's more like it's more, I guess, not so much the kids. It's like I hear this stuff now, they're leaning into your femininity. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell? Excuse me, what
Yes,
does that
that's fine.
mean?
Yes, yes, yes.
And I hear that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more it's like the double. I think I would say be okay, but I think people would like perceive me differently if I had kids, even if I were single,
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm single
Yes.
and don't,
And don't.
because it goes back to that
Yes.
something wrong. Is she
Yeah.
scared to date or not?
Yes.
Well, I know sometimes I don't put myself out there as much, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I think I really had a hard time with it again, the bad choices in my
Mm-hmm.
20s,
Mm-hmm.
in my 30s. I actually didn't look forward to turning 30. I actually looked forward to turning 40 and 50 more so than
Mm.
I did
Did
30.
30.
Because
You know,
30 is when I was
yeah.
still wrestling with
Mm-hmm.
all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
career too.
Yeah. And you were mentioning like mentorship, and having that village. And I highly encourage, whether it's a life coach, whether it's counseling, whether it's therapy, to help you navigate through some of those big emotions, because there's the identity thing that goes on just as a woman, right? That your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts change, you trying to find your way,
Mm-hmm.
in this role. And we have parents who guided us, but some people didn't have those parents. But things just change, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to learn as you go. Sometimes we're gonna make missteps, right? But how can we learn from those? But I think, as to your point, where you said you not being married and not having children, for some that's like a double dig. For
Mm-hmm.
some women, it's just like how you talked about. Yeah, it's more, it's like, oh, okay, well, at least she has a kid, so she
Mm-hmm.
has something to attach that self to. But when it's
Too.
like not both,
Yeah.
then it's but then I've seen it also, which goes to women. I've seen it
Mm-hmm.
as well, women who are couples who are married that don't have kids. It's still, why y'all
Mm-hmm.
don't, what if they're just a couple who opted not to have children?
Children.
You know,
Exactly.
it's just this unspoken rule, and I would encourage people to keep the focus on self.
Yeah.
you know.
I've never been called selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've heard that happen to some women too, or even some
Mm-hmm.
men that don't have
Mm.
kids. You're selfish because you're
Wow.
supposed to
Wow. Wow.
procreate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
no, that's not right. No.
Yeah. Like, and people, and I love the church, we both come from
Oh,
the church,
oh, yeah.
but it's that using scriptures, like what you talked about, that we're supposed to, be fruitful
Mm-hmm.
and multiply and all
Mm-hmm.
these things. Well, maybe I want to be fruitful and multiply in another kind of area, right? But as we're closing here, wrapping up, what advice or wise counsel would you give to a woman, especially younger women, looking back on from where you mentioned, in your 30s, you was just like, oh, this could skip over. But how
Mm-hmm.
can you encourage the women to resist that societal pressure, um, not to have children, that if that's the path that they want to take. So if you could look back at yourself, like your 30-year-old self, what would you, or even younger, tell someone
Mm-hmm.
who may be listening that is a little bit younger, who's opting not to have children?
I would say therapy. Therapy
Mm-hmm.
helps.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy helps, and like you were saying, like look at what you want to do with your
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
and try to use, if you have to use the therapy to kill the noise of
Mm-hmm.
other people telling you what you should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Like have a plan. If you have a
Yeah.
plan for your life that does not include
Mm-hmm.
kids, then that's okay. And
Yeah.
find your tribe. Find
Yes.
your tribe, even if your
Yeah.
tribe includes mothers. I'm not saying you got to
Mm-hmm.
exclude, because I have mothers, fathers,
Mm-hmm.
single, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
divorced, widowed,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
all of that. So just people that understand you. And it is hard, especially when you're young. You'll get the people that say you're going to change your mind and you're going to have regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I actually, ironically, again, when I was teaching, this was years ago, about over 20 years ago, I actually said that to a student who was saying, even as a junior in high
Mm-hmm.
school, she was like, as soon as I'm old enough, I'm getting a hysterectomy. I don't want kids. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you'll change your mind. And,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I mortified, like, because at that time I was still struggling, like, do I even really want kids?
Yeah.
But here
Yeah.
somebody was like, I do not want
Mm-hmm.
kids, and willing to get an operation to make it not happen.
Yeah.
So,
I saw a show where there were some women who actually did that in their 20s, because and the whole premise was like, why would you do that? What if you change your mind? And I think, this was just such a good conversation, because there's just such a double standard, just on a
mhm,
lot of areas, just with
yeah.
women, and how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be reared, whether we this kind of woman, whether we're an alpha woman, whether we're a beta woman, like we're all it's like, let people just be.
be.
And a true sure way is to really spend time with yourself
So yeah.
and really consult and see, what do I want to do with my life? Not
And
my
be a baby
parents. Yes.
and be a babysitter, work at
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
have a bunch of little cousins.
Mm-hmm.
That helped because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's how I knew that I'm like, wait a minute, because
Mm-hmm.
people still would say, well, those aren't your kids, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but and I love juicy babies, I love them, but
Mm-hmm. And you want to give them back after
I
a
could
while, give
roll
them
with
back.
maybe a weekend.
And that's just a classic point of we're all individualized. People put labels on how grandparents should be, how
Mhm.
parents should be. you know, it is let people evolve and grow to whom what they be want to be, and it really your opinion on it really don't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah,
It
and
really doesn't matter.
it does take time though
Yes,
to get
to
to
that
that
point.
point. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely yes. And so thank you, Erica, for just sharing. Time goes by so fast when
Yes,
we're
yeah.
having and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Suds Cafe, where I am your host, Tarina Ali, with our amazing guest, Erica Thompson, for
Hello.
where we had conversations to bubble over into your soul. And until next time, everyone have a good one.
Bye.